Unleashing the power of two as you and your partner conquer the PPS Panorama Tour starts with unleashing the power of one. The public victories that are always preceded by private victories. Those are the ones during the lonely hours on the road or on the indoor trainer that prepare you for this race.
So Steve, I've heard them say that training's for sissies. I don't think that's true for this race though.
Definitely not the case, Eric. This is a serious race. It is a social one if you want to take it that way, but ultimately you're going to face up to gravity. You're going to deal with some serious challenges.
And then obviously with the hilly nature, the kind of pro racing strategies and pace, your training requires many facets.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it gives you an opportunity to really target an individual. Hey, we just did some individual workouts just for you. I'm against my stats, you're against yours. We did the same hard workout. Very, very important to do those structured intervals, focusing on the correct energy systems.
So it never gets easier, you just go faster.
I always say it never gets easier, other people just get slower.
Welcome to episode 2 of preparing for the Panorama Tour. And I brought a friend along today. In studio with me is Steve Saunders. I reckon Steve was born on a bike. He certainly is part of the furniture in the road and mountain biking fraternities. Steve, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Eric. It's great to be here.
So last week we spoke about the tour in general, and this time let's chat specifically around the training and what you need to do to get ready for the Panorama Tour. And Steve, I think a lot of recreational riders go into most races undertrained and over-rested. This is not what you want to do for the PPS Panorama Tour.
No, this is a pretty serious tour, Eric, and it's multi-day. They need to consider recovery as a very serious aspect to it. So their training needs to overload them in multiple days as well. But like everything, you're only fit when you recover from the training session. So within those training sessions and the periodization and the structure, they need to build in recovery time and overload time.
So the guys probably need to look a little bit beyond long coffee shop rides.
Absolutely. We find this a lot within the club cultures. The club cultures give a great environment to get a couple of kilometers done. Generally it's social, a little bit of racing here and there, but there's no structure to the ride that's specific to an outcome. The guys are going to need to get out to a hill in their environment, something like in Joburg, Northcliffe Hill, really steep. It's going to force them to pedal properly. It's going to push the heart rate really hard, but it's also going to give them that loading on their core that they're going to feel when they're climbing the mountains in the low veld.
Well, I mean, absolutely important that over 6,200 meters of climbing in the 4 stages of the PPS Panorama Tour. What are some, maybe 3 hints to improve your climbing for the Panorama Tour?
Yeah, one of the first ones I'm going to say has got nothing to do with cycling. It's get into the gym. The core, very, very important to be able to handle the loading the back's going to have to handle through the whole tour. So get into the gym, get the core work done. The second factor is specifics. We mentioned Northcliffe Hill. Get out there, get loading done repeatedly on a climb that's very, very steep of some sort. And the third one is a functional range of motion. And that really talks to your flexibility. Aerodynamics, very important in cycling, 30% factor of improvement if you can sit in a slipstream properly. But if you're not in a slipstream and you're on your own, it's up to you keeping an aerodynamic position and being able to pedal properly. So that functional range of motion and flexibility become very, very important.
And I think a lot of people are listening to what you've just said and thinking, but I don't have that kind of time. I've got a real job, I've got a wife and a couple of kids. Are there alternatives to spending hours on the road?
Absolutely there are. In fact, the first point is a structured program is generally not that intensive on time. Virgin Active's putting some great facilities out there. They've got a bunch of different bikes that guys can ride, so they can spend their time, instead of sitting in traffic, they could go to the gym for an hour, sit on a watt bike, get some really structured training in under great load, and they get some great results. They can combine that with their core training, and then they can shower, head home, and they're sorted. The question that begs itself though is a consideration of life balance. And that life balance is very important as well. So often the riders coming to the PPS Panorama Tour are very A-type personalities. They're driven, they've got goals, and they're lofty goals. They want to do really well, but they also have lofty goals in work, and they have family commitments, and they have social commitments, and mixing those together, it does get quite difficult. But consult a coach, work with someone, find someone who can work out that balance in your life as well, and you'll find out the amount of hours required is not that much.
I'm guessing also that a smaller percentage of the PPS Panorama Tour field are there to actually race. Everyone else is there for the experience, to say they've done a multi-stage road race. And what I've seen in the past is, the recreational riders get there and 20 kilometers into the stage, they are absolutely blown to pieces. How do you train for that?
Two aspects to it. One, those intervals, those quality intervals where you really are targeting yourself against a wattage load output becomes very important. But also part of that number or that function is the ability to sit a wheel, which talks to your tactical sense. That's an experience you'd learn within your club riding environment. Speak to the instructors around you. Make sure you can stick to that wheel, because there is an efficiency benefit to staying close to another rider all the time. So there's another aspect to it, Eric, and that is making sure you've warmed up. The guys always assume that they need to conserve energy for the actual race, but by starting a race flat out without a warm-up, you put your body under such a huge stress load that you end up with this negative impact. An hour and a half into a race typically is where you'll find all the beginners cracking out. And that's where all your glycogen stores are depleted, you're left with fat stores only, your energy systems have to drop. You can avoid that by doing a progressive warm-up before. So get to the start 40, 50 minutes, an hour before, go for a ride. Those roads out there are beautiful, the scenery is beautiful, it's nice and early in the morning, the roads are quiet. Head out for 15, 20 minutes, head back for 15, 20 minutes with a progressive increase in load as you go. You want to get to the point where your heart rate has hit 90% of maximum at one point. It's not the whole way, you built into it. And then calm it down, do a bit of stretching, grab a coffee at the race village, and then head to the start line. You'll find a world of difference to your endurance capabilities.
The tour is unique in that you're riding with a partner. It is tough. How do you think mentally we can train for the PPS Panorama Tour?
You need to make sure you're looking after each other. If one of those partners collapses or cracks at any point during the stage, that's it over for the team. The team is going backwards. So they need to respect the ability of each rider, and it doesn't mean if one rider is naturally stronger than the other that they're going to be stronger the whole way through the tour. So we find this dynamic affecting the mental abilities of the riders quite often. So that team dynamic, very, very important to get right. And also to assist each other as much as possible. You want to make sure you're eating and drinking at regular intervals. Got great water tables out there, but there are long gaps in between. Eat and drink on a regular basis, remind each other. Let the stronger rider take the lead when needed. If you're feeling a little bit tired, talk to your mate. Maybe you're going to hold on to the pocket, who knows? But you've got to look after each other to get to the finish line.
In a race like the PPS Panorama Tour, it's very undulating, some tough climbs, some really hairy descents. Yeah. I've never seen someone crash majorly on a climb, but often on a descent.
Yeah.
How would you build that repertoire into your training program?
There are environments where you can go to learn road bike skills. Those skills are very much about the predictability and understanding how another rider is going to react to environments on the road. Descending is the same story, except it's happening 40, 50 kilometers an hour faster than normal. And that's something you've got to read ahead. So my advice to most of them is spend lots of time getting to understand the flow of the bunch and how they interact. Speak to the professional riders around you, speak to the club leaders around you. They're going to help you with those tidbits of information that they've picked up over the years of experience. So you've got to work with those dynamics, develop the confidence, stay relaxed, try not to use the brakes in reaction to things, flow with the flow of the other riders.
So absolutely, experience counts. But I think the one element of the PPS Panorama Tour that most riders would not have experience in is the time trial. How would newbies, inexperienced riders approach that time trial?
So I'm going to stress again the importance of a warm-up. In a time trial, you're going to go out, and no matter how much you plan to go out slowly, it's never going to happen. You're going to end up pushing really, really hard. And the profile of the time trial for this event, having done it last year, I've got my experience with it, is up and out, turn around, down and back. Okay. With that, you've got to look after each other the whole way out. So if one of you is stronger as a time trialist or stronger as a climber, you need to work that into the strategy of how you're going to handle it. But all the time, aerodynamics, very, very important for a time trial. Even on the uphill sections, you've got possibly 25, 26 to 30 k's an hour is the speed they're going to be holding. And there's a little bit of aerodynamic drag at that point. So you've got to stay low, you've got to stay functional, you've got to keep that range of motion. And what I'd say is stay consistent with your effort the whole way through. So at no point crack your teammate. You want to keep that effort level very, very consistent.
A lot of guys probably haven't got the budgets to rush out and get time trial bikes and that sort of thing. You know, you spoke about aerodynamics. Are there little tweaks, little things that the guys could do in their time trial?
Eric, there's 3 aspects to aerodynamic drag for a cyclist. The body is the first one, and it affects about 80 to 90% of the overall drag. The bike is the wheels are the second one, and the bike is the third one. The wheels are probably the most important piece of equipment you could have. What I see with most of the guys on the road is they've got pretty aerodynamic wheels. So just make sure they're clean, they're running smooth, tires are pumped properly, and you should be fine with it. It's the body that's going to affect the majority of the aerodynamic drag. Is your body comfortable sitting in that aerodynamic position is the big question. That's where a time trial bike would be of advantage, because it'll pull you into that time trial position and you can rest in that position. You've got to build that into your training as well. The guys have to get out and do some efforts, keeping themselves at that threshold heart rate, and they'll know where that is. That's a point where any faster you crack, any slower, well, it doesn't feel very hard. So there's a sweet spot, you can feel it as you go. Get used to it, find out where it is, and then apply it in the race.
Steve, thank you very much. Certainly a ton of information there.
Thanks, Eric. I look forward to it, and it's going to be a great day out there, I'm sure, for everyone.
There you have it. Some real pearls of wisdom from a really experienced bike rider and coach. So work some of those tips into your training and preparation for the PPS Panorama Tour. Keep the rubber side down.